Hyperledger. In this lecture, you'll learn Fabric and Composer. Let's start with what is Hyperledger. Hyperledger is an umbrella project of open source blockchain and related tools started in December 2015 by the Linux Foundation. In essence, Hyperledger does not refer to a specific technology or tool. It refers to a project under which multiple development teams are collaborating to create open source blockchain and distributed ledger technologies. This collaboration among the developers across multiple initiatives would lead to reuse, standardization, and interoperability between different blockchain technologies developed under the Hyperledger umbrella. The Linux Foundation since 2000 has delivered many open source projects, and at this point, Hyperledger is one of the projects under the Linux Foundation. The Linux Foundation is dedicated to building sustainable ecosystem around open source projects to accelerate technology development and commercial adoption. The Linux Foundation has dedicated staff and all the initiatives are funded via the membership fees. These are some of the members. As of 2017, there are 800 plus members and 50 plus active projects under the Linux Foundation. Under Linux Foundation, Hyperledger is the incubator for blockchain technologies for business. All of the Hyperledger initiatives are put in one of two categories. The first category is the DLT frameworks, and the second category is the tools. There are 4 active DLT framework initiatives. Sawtooth is led by Intel. Iroha is led by Suramitsu. IBM donated the source code for its blockchain initiative called Open Blockchain, and that combined with the source code from some other partners such as Digital Assets incubated the Hyperledger Fabric project. Most recent addition is the Hyperledger Burrow from Monex. Monex is known for its work on creating a permissioned chain on top of Ethereum blockchain technology. Second category of initiative is the tools. There are 4 active tool projects. Cello is an initiative that aims to simplify creation and management of blockchain infrastructure. Composer is for creating business network applications using the high-level Composer language. Explorer provides visibility into an operational blockchain system. Quilt aims to achieve interoperability between different chains. The idea behind all of these tools is that they will be reusable across the various distributed ledger technology frameworks. For example, irrespective of which Hyperledger distributed ledger technology you would use, you may use the Explorer to gain visibility into the transactions, blocks, etc. In this course, the focus is on Hyperledger Fabric and the Composer tool. If you're interested in learning more about these projects, please refer to the links in the resources for this lecture. There are over 159 engineers from 28 plus organizations involved in the Hyperledger Fabric initiative. The version 1.0 of Fabric was released on July 11, 2017. It is production ready at this point. The Hyperledger Fabric is evolving at a very rapid pace, and I suggest that you join the Hyperledger community to stay up to date on Hyperledger initiatives. Please visit hyperledger.org/community and explore all the options you have here. Let's go back to what is Fabric. Fabric is a production-ready blockchain framework for creating business blockchain application. Framework here refers to the fact that Hyperledger is not a ready platform like, for example, an RDBMS database such as Oracle or web server such as Apache, which can be installed and used out of the box. Rather, Fabric is a framework that provides a set of infrastructure and application building blocks. Also, it provides practices and guidelines for creating blockchain business applications. To use this framework, you would need to analyze your blockchain application requirements and then create the infrastructure design that would involve use of the Fabric building blocks. Also, when you are writing the software for the blockchain application on Fabric, you would need to have the knowledge of the standard components and APIs and functions. Let's summarize. In this lecture, I covered the relationship between Hyperledger, Hyperledger Fabric, and Linux Foundation. Hyperledger is an incubator for blockchain technologies. It's an umbrella project hosted by the Linux Foundation. Hyperledger Fabric is one of the distributed ledger technology framework initiatives. And Hyperledger Composer is a blockchain tool for creating business application on the Hyperledger DLT frameworks. Distributed ledger technology. In this lecture, I'll explain by way of an example what is distributed ledger technology. I'll also touch on the typical challenges associated with the distributed ledger technology. At a high level, think of Hyperledger Fabric as a platform that enables the businesses to create decentralized system for exchange of value. Now, if I ask you which industry involves exchange of value, what would you say? If you said all, then you're right, because all businesses are involved in exchange of some form of value. For example, retail industry is all about exchanging goods for cash. Financial industry deals with exchange of stocks and bonds, and you can easily figure out the value exchanges that takes place in other industries. In the context of Hyperledger, there is a concept of an asset. An asset represents the value. Assets can be tangible, that is, they are things that you can touch and feel in physical world, or the assets may be intangible. For example, a car is a tangible asset, a home is a tangible asset, whereas stock ownership certificate and customer reward points are intangible assets. Now that you know what an asset is, let's talk about the exchange aspect of the asset. All enterprises are required to keep track of all business transactions related to the assets in a book of records. This book of record keep track of how things of value or assets are being exchanged by the business with other businesses or entities. For example, a car manufacturer builds the car, that is an asset. This fact is recorded in the car company's book of records. The car company then transfers the ownership of the car to the dealer, and this exchange is recorded by the car manufacturer in its book of records. Dealer has its own book of records, and it records the fact that it received the car from the manufacturer. At some point, the dealer transfers the ownership of the car to a customer, and it is recorded in the dealer's book of record. These book of records are basically the ledgers maintained by each of these entities. That is, the car manufacturer is maintaining its own ledger and the car dealer is maintaining its own ledger. So in essence, the ledger is the book of record which is maintained by each of the entities involved in the exchange of value. And the entities do not have visibility into each other's book of records or the ledger. Now, till now, I have talked only about the car manufacturer and the car dealer, but the car manufacturer does not create or build all the parts that go into the car. Mostly, the car manufacturer actually procures the parts for the car from other businesses, and each of these businesses have their own ledgers. Now, in this picture, every entity that is involved in the exchange of either parts or the car, which are all assets, is managing their own ledger. Let's say we have to answer this question now. What is the history of this specific car? The customer who owns the car can give us information about the dealer. We can check dealer's ledger to understand where the dealer received the car. Then we can check the manufacturer's ledger to understand where all the parts came from. So we get good historical idea about the car that the customer owns. But what if that car has exchanged multiple hands by way of sales? Then things get complicated because the customers are not managing any such ledger or book of records. Let's consider another question. What is the source of each part in the car? In this case, we can get the information on where the manufacturer procured the parts from. But then each of the parts suppliers are getting their raw material from other manufacturers. And as expected, this chains of books become pretty complicated quite fast. And as a result, it may not be easy to answer such questions. In some industries, it is important and sometimes time critical to get visibility into such kind of information. Two such industries are the aircraft manufacturing industry and the food and beverage industry. If there is an air crash due to a part failure, the investigators look for the part responsible for the crash. This is a time sensitive issue as the faulty part in other aircraft may cause more accidents. Same way in the food industry, it is important to track the source of contaminated food in as little time as possible. Using the books of various entities is not the most efficient way to do that. Distributed ledger provides a way to address this challenge. Here is a simplified view of how distributed ledger technology works. Each entity involved in the exchange of value holds a replica or copy of the common book of records, referred to as the distributed ledger. All transactions are recorded by various entities in this distributed ledger. A transaction for creation of car is initiated by the manufacturer. It gets recorded not only in the copy of the distributed ledger held by the manufacturer, but it also gets reflected in the dealer's copy of the ledger. Same way, transfer of car ownership by manufacturer and then by the dealer is also recorded in the same ledger. The distributed ledger technology implementation has to deal with multiple challenges. The first one is to maintain consistency across the copies of the ledger. That is, all participants see the same data in the transactions and all of the transactions are in the right order at all times. Another set of challenges is the privacy and the confidentiality aspect. Participants may not want their identities to be disclosed. So the DLT technology has to provide some way to manage that aspect. Confidentiality refers to how only the authorized parties can have visibility into the transactions. Another set of challenges associated with the distributed ledger technology implementation are scalability, interoperability, and standardization. Hyperledger Fabric is a DLT framework that addresses most of the typical challenges associated with the realization of architecture that leverages distributed ledgers. I started this lecture by describing Hyperledger Fabric as a decentralized system for exchange of value. The decentralization is achieved by way of the distributed ledger, that is, a ledger which is shared by all the participants in the business. The asset created by the manufacturer is added to the ledger, and then anytime the ownership changes for the asset, it is recorded in the ledger as a transaction.